President Trump's overtures to Mexico, and of course that Fed meeting from last week, that all drove the markets higher, with the Dow closing above 26,000 for the first time since February 1st. Now, U.S. car stocks closed up, you guessed it, nearly 5%. And keep in mind our conversation we just had earlier with the former Commerce Secretary saying this may not be a good thing. Investors think otherwise. Ford, GM, and Fiat Chrysler stocks all made gains. On Quest Express, I really was there to see how receptive the mood was to this trade deal.
This is very market-friendly news, and they like it.
Even if he pulls out an NAFTA and makes it bilateral on each side, that's not market-friendly news.
Well, look, NAFTA was a deal that was done 25 years ago, and we're in a very different world than we were 25 years ago, so I don't think there's anything wrong with going back and improving on what that deal was.
Okay, and it wasn't just the Dow that was climbing. We are here apparently at the Trading Post, the Quest Means Business Trading Post. I've got my trusty chalk in hand again. I can't believe this, guys. Okay, so we're not at a record there yet, but 26,000 from February 1st. Get this, people, 16 records today. And this one, 27. You ask me how high can it go? It can still go much higher. Traders telling me that, in fact, they're at an inflection point. This is a breakout point for the market. Joining me from Southampton in New York is the former White House Communications Director, Anthony Scaramucci. Anthony, thank you so much for joining me. Okay, I don't even know where to start. Let's start with NAFTA in the market. You are on record as saying that anytime the Trump administration has this good economy to run on and talk about, that's all they should talk about. Why do you think the market is ignoring all the political chaos? And look, they don't care that Canada's not in the trade deal. They don't care that China trade talks might be difficult coming up in the next few weeks. They don't care about any of it. They're pretty happy with this economy.
Well, and it's nice to be here, Paul, but they're also making the bet that the president and his team are going to negotiate deals with Canada, with China, and the EU. And so when a deal is set, and I may slightly disagree with the secretary on this, once the deal is set, the market gets calm because now they know that there's a deal in place, and that deal will probably be a 5 to 10, possibly 15-year deal before it gets restructured again. And so what we both know, Paula, is that the markets like certainty. As it relates to the president and some of the soap opera stuff that goes on around the White House, I think that's also baked into the market. I think people view the president as being on the money as it relates to regulation and economic policy, and they really do think that they believe his trade policy, where he's trying to move the trade situation so that there are less tariffs on U.S. goods and services that are being exported from the United States. So that combination is the reason why you're seeing records, the reason why the Atlanta Fed this week upped their estimate on the GDP print for next quarter to 4.6%. And it just speaks to the economic miracle that is America. With the right policies, Paula, we can grow, I think, normalized 3.25%, which does really resolve a lot of our entitlement issues and other liabilities that we have outstanding. So by and large, very favorable on that front. It was also very nice to see him put the flag at half staff.
Okay, let's get to that, because I gave you a softball question, but why did it take so long for him to do that with the flag? I know it had been that way earlier in the weekend. It just seemed to take so much out of him to put out a respectful statement and say nice things about an American hero who, the fact remains, has just passed away. What is it about the president? You know him, you've known him for many years. What is it that he can't bring himself to do this?
Well, listen, I think he wears everything on his sleeve. One of the reasons why the American people like him is that he's not the typical politician. He didn't get along with Senator McCain. I have an enormous amount of respect for the senator and view him as a wartime hero. But those swords clashed, and so the president is not really a politician. He's more of a business person, and so his competitive juices are there, and his emotionalism is on his sleeve. I'm very glad that he did that. He's sitting as the commander-in-chief of the United States, and it was important for him to recognize one of our highest-profile veterans, and a veteran, frankly, that served the country in the Senate for 32 years. And was in prison in Hanoi for 5.5 years. So,
but those are things
I'm sure
we
the
all
people
know,
around
Anthony.
The
president doesn't seem to know it. Didn't seem to recognize it at all, even to his family.
No, he he recognizes that he's just a very competitive person, and he gets his ire up at the things, the shots across the bow that Senator McCain fired at him. I think he's also frustrated at the no vote on Obamacare. He had promised his base and his constituency that he was going to repeal.
The man has died, and he's holding a grudge.
I think it's a little more than that. You know, by the way, I don't think it's right. If you're asking me if I think it's right, no, I would be advising the president to turn it down a notch. You're winning on so many different fronts. Why do we have to be on CNN and Quest Business talking about this? Turn it down a notch, lower the flag, offer a branch out there. You know, there's a very famous expression is that the anger is a poison that you're drinking, hoping that the other person gets sick from it. And so just drop it. That would be my advice. But yeah, I'm not saying it's the right thing. You asked me to explain it, and so I'm explaining it based on what I know of the president's personality.
I want to move on to what was an absolutely momentous week last week. We had Paul Manafort being found guilty. We had Michael Cohen pleading guilty. And then we heard that one of the president's most trusted financial confidants had so-called flipped. What did you make of all that last week? And how worried do you think the president is about all three situations?
Well, I don't think he's worried about the situations, but that was a very, very tough week. I think he feels insulated from a legal perspective. I think it's very bad facts and very bad optics. But I don't think the president is a target of any of those investigations.
But his family
what's going on. And
Wouldn't
so
that worry him?
It seems like
his family could be. Wouldn't that worry him?
Of course it would. Yes, 100%. And so yes, and I think that emotionally charges him. And I think it frays him a little bit. And I think it's upsetting to him. And in some ways, he feels a little bit of guilt that he entered the world of politics and now he's become a target. You know, I just got back from Israel, spent a week there. One of the slogans there is that if you're going to run for office, they build a jail cell for you in Israel before you run for office, so that once you're in office, they can find a way to stick you in that jail cell. So we're doing that now in our country. We're weaponized against each other. Accusations are slung at Secretary Clinton. They're slung at the president and his family. And so it's a mean nastiness in Washington that by and large, all of the American people really don't like it.
Okay, but Anthony, you're trying to be magnanimous about this. That's not the way it works. I mean, we had one person plead guilty in court. The other was found guilty. These were financial crimes. This is not about a political hack job.
Well, it actually is. I mean, with all due respect, but maybe that's why my magnanimity is probably the reason why I only lasted 11 days. But on the topic, yes, it is, because just look at the facts. Paul Manafort, all of his infractions and all of his illegalities were done prior to him meeting President Trump as his campaign manager. I think they knew each other, but before he officially became campaign manager. As it relates to Michael Cohen, the facts seem a little garbled there about what, Lonnie Davis said that the president knew about the meeting. They're now walking that back. The president's been told by Rod Rosenstein and others that he's not a target of the investigation as it relates to Michael Cohen. And so, yes, I hear you. These people committed crimes. They admitted guilt to these crimes. But it doesn't appear, at least in the current configuration, as we understand the facts right now, it doesn't appear like the president's done anything illegal. Now, we could get to a situation a week from now as more facts unfold. Again, facts matter, and the truth is the truth, Paula. So as the truth unfolds, I may change my tune. But just looking at it objectively right now, I don't see any illegality on the president's part, and most people feel that way.
I'm not sure.
Listen, you may not like what I'm saying, but I don't think the president's done anything wrong. He's printing 4% GDP growth. Okay. He's renegotiating these trade deals. And he's making the country stronger and healthier economically.
But his approval rating should be over 50%, not where it is if he didn't have all this political scandal surrounding him.
That's true.
Before I let you go, Jeff Sessions, it looks like he will fire him.
55%, no question.
You're at 55%. You have said that it would be a bad decision. Do you still think it would be a bad decision? I've detected a turn with leading Republicans in Washington on the record, now kind of seeming as if they would tolerate Jeff Sessions being fired after the midterms.
Well, now that seems to be the case, it's less of a bad decision. If he had fired him 6 months ago or back in July of last year when I was the comms director, I would have strongly recommended against it because there would have been a revolt up on Capitol Hill. But if you're telling me that they're willing to accept somebody else in that position and they're going to confirm somebody else, that leaves the president the option of firing Attorney General Sessions. But I still don't like the idea, because I would rather have this case be disclosed. Let Robert Mueller, the special prosecutor, put out his report. Let's see what's in the report. And this way, no one going into the 2020 election can accuse the president of doing something political to his attorney general at a time when his staff and possibly himself were under investigation. Right. So I still would recommend not doing it. Yeah. But he's going to have way more political air cover now, Paula, than he did 6 months ago.
Yeah, and that is the bottom line there. I got to go. I'm going to ask you, you haven't spoken to the president recently, or you have?
No, last time I spoke to him was after the Junker meeting, but I just give you a little customer feedback on the chalk. You got to be careful. School's about to start again. You may want to not use chalk. It scares people.
My numbers are not looking too good over there, Anthony. We'll invite you in to do it next time. How about that? We've got to hold you to it. You're not that far from me physically right now.
All right,
you can just come into
the
studio. All right, got it. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.